Welcome back to the Down Under Bunker here in Sydney, Australia for this game of Axis and Allies 1942. Been playing a couple smaller games recently, just played 1941. Now going into this one, also another good one to introduce your friends to. Good to have a few more units on the board, I think, and just to have the artillery as well. That makes a big difference in the game. And bombing raids and industrial factories, you can build them and stuff, so a lot more complexity in this one. Makes it a whole lot more fun. There isn't much else to say. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you after round one. Alright, just finished round one in this game of Axis and Allies 1942. And interesting start, I would say. The Allies definitely have the upper hand. A few unfortunate rolls, especially for the Japanese, and a couple for the Germans as well. Let's start here in the Pacific, where the Japanese have taken a few spots in China. I didn't take there, but the Russians put a guy in there. Americans have retreated out with those 2 infantry and sent the fighter down to India. The British buying 3 infantry in India, just trying to back it up there. The Japanese here have sent a lot of units, including planes, down in French Indochina, and also built a factory there as well. The Japanese don't have much navy left on the board, just a couple battleships, couple destroyers, 4 transports though, because they attempted an attack into the original American Navy that was off the coast of Hawaii. They lost the aircraft carrier and a fighter in that, and then they had a cruiser and a fighter go back to Wake Island. Oh, they did also lose a submarine in that attack as well. And then the cruiser off the coast of Wake Island was quickly destroyed by the Americans with a few of their fighters. So the Japanese Navy looking very thin at the moment, and the Americans have taken advantage of that, spending all of their money in the Pacific, more land units, more transports. So Japan looking in a bit of trouble. The British did come down and, with all of their navy, tried to take out the battleship and aircraft carrier that are in Sea Zone 37 off the coast of East Indies. And they were going to try and land 4 infantry on the East Indies to see if they can take that $4 away from Japan. It is a big loss to Japan if that happens. Unfortunately for the British, they only killed 1 aircraft carrier, not even a fighter, and they lost all their navy in doing it, and 4 infantry. So not looking good for them there. Over here in Europe, the Germans playing a different strategy, going a bit of a sea line, building an aircraft carrier, transport, destroyer, no ground units at all. They also bought a bomber. They lost their first bomber though in a bombing raid of London, got shot down by the AAA. The Russians had a successful attack into West Russia, backed out of Karelia, and they did the 1 round of combat in Ukraine, killed everything apart from the fighter, retreated. That worked perfectly for them. So now the Caucasus are looking pretty strong, so is West Russia. The Germans have put every single unit that could into Poland, apart from those guys, because they wanted them to be available for an attack on UK. But the British have bought themselves 4 infantry and a fighter, so now they've got 3 fighters there. Bought a tank across from Canada. Killed a cruiser and 2 submarines that were left over in Sea Zone 7, so I don't think the Germans will be able to take that. US doing nothing in the Atlantic this turn. That is all from round 1, and I'll see you after round 2. Alright, we've just finished round 2, and it has been one hectic round. So much has happened, and the game is massively now in favour of the Axis. They probably will actually win next turn, to my surprise, but 3 rounds of Axis and Allies 1942, and there could be a winner. But for now, we've just finished round 2, and let's look at the board. So here, the Japanese are really setting up for an assault on India. You might be wondering, oh, why have the British not bought anything in India? Well, I'll show you later why that is the case. And the Japanese are really pushing for it now. The Americans have desperately scrambled to take Wake Island to put pressure on Japan and Manila, because they need to put pressure on victory cities very shortly, otherwise the game could go south next round. So they've brought their whole navy, a few ground units as well. I think it's a pretty good move by them to put pressure on the Japanese. Over here in Africa, the British attacked into Libya, but the Germans held strong, and the British have really suffered casualties there. In Russia, the Russians have built up in the Caucasus, built more infantry in Russia. The Russians did take Leningrad back, but the Germans are heading this way because London was taken. Big surprise, wasn't expecting it, but the Germans had to respond to all the British stuff that was there, and they knew if they took it then the game would be pretty much over, and if they didn't take it, well, it would not be looking good for them. So they did buy a whole bunch of ground units just to reinforce if it wasn't going to go so well, but yeah, that went really well for the Germans. They did lose a lot of fighters, but it's worth it in the end. The Americans now having to move out their small little navy in range of London, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Germans just come and take that out. It's not looking good for the Allies at all at the moment. Germany will pretty much guaranteed hold on to London. Karelia will probably fall. And India here, the British weren't able to buy anything. That will definitely fall next turn with all of that stuff. So it's really down to the Americans if they can take a victory city and see if something crazy can happen, maybe in Russia, so that the Germans will not take Karelia. Yeah, not good for the Allies at the moment, but seeing how much can change in one round, who knows. I'll see you after round 3. Alright, just finished round 3, and it's the end of the game. Just like that, the Axis have won. Here's the board at the end of this round. Over here in Europe, we had the Germans take on the American Navy that was there, build up in London, take Karelia, build 10 tanks in Germany, plus 1 in Italy. Solid defense, solid offense, still so many tanks left in Karelia as well. The Americans struggling over here. Morocco did fall though, the Americans came back and did a little punch, but too little too late. The British tried an attack with 1 infantry into there, and you can see how that went. The Russians starting to push forward, chucked everything they could into Karelia. Could have chucked a bit more, but I don't think it would have mattered. They did need to keep stuff protecting Moscow. Japanese have taken India, closer than I would have thought, but they did take it. Even taking the rest of Australia. Putting out blockers so the Americans couldn't take a victory city, but the Americans just punched everything into there. But also too little too late. And that is the end of the game. 9 victory cities to the Axis. They've won the game, and yeah, that is a very short game. Just like that, I've never had a game that lasted 3 rounds, but there you go. I've never tried to do a sea lion before with the Germans, and that worked out really well, so have to try that next time. But thanks for watching, everyone. A bit of a shorter one, and I'll see you next time. Down on the bunker, signing off.